always good to see people in spațiu gathering to have a conversation, a discussion. And today we open the first session of our cycle of public talks that will be followed by discussions dedicated to the topic of art and conflict. Just to contextualize very briefly this event, it's called Common Ground, Puncte Comune. To translate it in Romanian, it resembles closely the idea of a common space that would connect us and create a kind of base for a conversation, a model base for conversation and confrontation of ideas. So Puncte Comune is not just a singular event. It started several years ago as a collaboration between the Berlin Association, Zurich Art University, and with Rada, who is a researcher and who was visiting Moldova for several years in a row, doing interviews with cultural workers. Maybe some of you were part of these interviews. We also hosted some workshops on the topic of artistic autonomy, but also trying to analyze let's call it antagonists or different perspectives on important local, regional, and international issues. And this series of presentations today, tomorrow, and Saturday will actually collect some of these gatherings of thoughts, and probably we can have conversations based on the on this collection of thoughts and ideas. Just to introduce shortly Oberlicht perspective, which in a way hosts this event. We always had we have this practice of working with public space and urban transformations, and it was always a question how to face different urban crises when we know all these topics, when public property is being misused or ends up in private hands and then commercialized, and we lose the connection with the city, with our own urban environment, and so on. How to overcome this reactory way of acting, because we always have to react to some kind of shitty situation or any kind of crisis where you were just facing and you had just to react. So how to think how to act in a way in which we could anticipate some of these problems. And I think this meeting today is about this, in a way, how to anticipate a crisis, how to organize in a way in which we can foresee in advance the developments in the different fields. Culture and art is something that can help us doing this. So this program, these 3 days, is hosting a series of workshops. They're running in the first half of the day, so if you would like to join some practical activities, you can also come from 1 o'clock tomorrow and Saturday. And in the evenings we have the talks. And we couldn't have this program without Arta, who was always very engaged and very attentive to local situations and needs. And I will let her introduce the program of tonight and of the next 2 days, and also the speakers and maybe the topics. And I wish you all productive meetings and discussions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, my name is Rada. I will be moderating the discussion later on a little bit. And we have two great speakers today, Anna and Shoghakat, who I will introduce in a minute. And we will hear Anna first, and then Shoghakat. Then there will be room for questions, so I will start with a few, but you are very encouraged to think of questions and ask anything that you're curious about. And after that, there will be drinks and placinte, and you're welcome to stick around for that. And the program, as Vladimir said, today is the first day, and we always have a workshop in the afternoon between 1 and 4, to which you're also very warmly invited. Tomorrow we'll have a workshop with Julia, and the day after that with Bojan. And in the evenings we have two presentations, so once with our international guests and with somebody local to Moldova. And the evening discussions will always start at 6 or quarter past. So Vladimir introduced the research project already, which is a little bit the background of this, and I will just summarize it very quickly because I think most of you are also familiar with it already. It's called Contemporary Art, Popular Culture, and Peace Building. And there are 3 sub-projects, one in Armenia, one in Poland, and one in Moldova. And we are focusing on bottom-up initiatives, so not peace building that is done top-down by huge international organizations, but we're interested in what are artists and cultural workers doing locally on the ground. We also found that sometimes we don't really refer to these big words like war and peace on the one side because they're not easy to define, but on the other hand also because there is just so much happening around war, and there is, when we talk about peace, we don't mean just the absence of violence, but a society that is more peaceful is also a society that is more equal and more just. So we operate on this presumption that a more equal society is better to respond to conflicts once they emerge. And so this is more or less it. As Vladimir said, these are the questions we're looking at. Once something like a crisis or a conflict or a war happens, what do we do? How do we support each other? How can we react to these situations? So I will now introduce Anna. Maybe some of you are familiar with her. She had an exhibition in this very space earlier this month, which was called Brave, and maybe some of you have any of you visited? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So some people are familiar with it. And this exhibition shows some first results of a project that is aimed to introducing young girls to activism. Anna has also spoken here in this very room in Spațiu during the Ukraine month. That's, I think, when I first met you, speaking about her activity with displaced people from Ukraine. And so Anna, sorry, I forgot to say her last name, Anna Provozin, is an artist. She's based in Moldova now, but is originally from Lviv in Ukraine. And she studied peace and development work at the Linnaeus University in Sweden, and has since then been active in many different organizations. She works with teenagers from vulnerable groups at the Informal Education Center Diversity or Diversitate, using artistic methods to foster social change. Anna is also an artist herself, an independent artist, creates illustrations, also works with upcycling of clothing, and she sees art as a good form of escapism which helps us see the world as we wanted to be. Welcome, Anna. And I will briefly introduce Shoghakat. So, Shoghakat Mlke-Galstyan. Hello. Shoghakat is a Yerevan-based choreographer, performer, and cultural manager, amongst other things. And her work bridges contemporary performing arts, research, social engagement. She is the founder and soloist of MIHR Theater, and manager of the Tiezerk Band, and also a lecturer at the Yerevan State University of Theater and Cinematography. In addition to that, Shoghakat is a curator of the living room space in Yerevan, which opened in 2024 and has since hosted many artistic activities, and this space specifically centers displaced people from the Nagorno-Karabakh region and attempts to provide them and to connect them to local artists and international artists in various ways. And we will hear more about that later in Shoghakat's presentation. Without further ado, I will open the presentation. Are you okay with clicking it, or do you want me to?
Hi everyone, as was already mentioned, my name is Anna. I'm from Ukraine, but I live here for 5 or 6 years already, so a bit more like local here, so somehow in the middle. And when I was thinking about art and war and conflict, first that came to my mind, as artists we have not really chosen this work, but we also have. And that's always like the constant struggle I face in my work, that I work at the work I always dreamt of, but not really in the context I dreamt of. How do you change pages?
Down,
like this?
or like this.
Okay.
Or it should be
Down doesn't work.
no, and sideways.
Okay. So I always wanted to work as an artist, work with teenagers, work with youth and young people, but I never wanted to do this in the context of working with displaced and refugee Ukrainian teenagers. I never wanted kids I worked with to be in this state. And I think many of you will agree that one of the reasons why we all are here and why we do what we do is because of Russia and what it does. And I think we all somehow went through these stages of accepting that this country, so to say, fucked up all of its neighboring countries, and now we as artists, as cultural workers, as researchers, as activists, now we have to deal with what Russia has done to our countries. And all of us are somehow on the last stage of all that so fucked up. And now we have to deal with the colonial past that Russia left to us, and we have to deal with present that is also not very pleasant. So a lot of things to unravel, a lot of layers to work with. And that is why artistic approach is one of the approaches that is most suited for this, because, as you know, trauma that is stored in the body, it's not always can be healed with words. It needs some movement, it needs some interaction with materials, and etc. And that's when the art steps in. And that is why, for example, in the projects I worked in Ukraine, we had projects called Building Bridges, Not Walls, for displaced teenagers and teenagers from the war zone, where they process their trauma through art. So art meaning also like theater, drawing, music, like creating something. So art in a broader sense of different artistic methods. And what we've noticed in Moldova when we opened our youth center for Ukrainian teenagers is that first of all, people had very wrong perception of art as a method of working with conflict and with war consequences, and second of all, people had very wrong perception of how to work with teenagers. So that was like the main problem, that everyone was trying to apply the approach like don't be sad, as people do with depression and other things, like let's cheer the kids up. They came from the conflict zone and they need something to be happy about. And our approach was like, be sad, be whoever you want, be whatever you feel right now. And here is the safe space for you to feel all of these feelings you are actually not supposed to feel as an 11-year-old girl or as a 15-year-old boy. That was the moment when we realized that we need to do artistic things in order to help teenagers process their trauma. Why more? First of all, we were looking a lot at the stages of development of the kid, and we were seeing art as a tool that reflects the stages of development very well. And here, if we talk about this more, is that even though it's not very common sense, teenagers have a very high need for stability in general as a target group. And if we talk with teenagers with war trauma, they have extreme need for stability. Even though teenagers normally don't show it, they're like, we are wild, we are free, we don't need any stability, we want to run over the place, we want to jump, we want to do whatever, we don't need the stability. In fact, based on the stages of development, this is one of the basic needs that they need to have. And of course, this is one of the basic needs that was taken away from them when they came here to the new country where they didn't know anyone. That is why we thought that, okay, if they need stability as teenagers, if they need stability as people with trauma, then we should try to use art to provide this stability. And then it reflects in everything you do. So, when we started to look at how to work with these teenagers, even materials you use are very important in order to provide the stability. So you cannot use watercolor paint or do some abstract things, because then it's instability in what they create. So then we started to be very careful about which materials we give. We used a lot of acrylic paint, markers, pencils, something that you take and you create and you know what to expect from this material. So you don't use oil pastel that will just go with the flow, but you need something very concrete, very very straightforward. Then we rented a big space for these teenagers, so they could create and that they could know that this is their space. And other important thing about stability was that everything they create was untouched somehow. So, if they created some installation, it had to stay there until they remove it. So then, for example, we had a lot of things called halabuda, if you know, like this. They really liked to play theater, draw, but they were building these halabudas, and it could stay there for weeks. Like you enter the room, and there are like 3 halabudas. In every halabuda, something is happening. Someone is drawing something, and that's part of stability. It's kind of their new house they created, and they were even writing like halabuda nasha, like it's our halabuda. No one can enter it, settling these boundaries. And that's when the art was a very useful tool, because then we could provide them with materials to create as crazy halabudas as possible, like use blankets, use textile, use colors, build them however you want, and then giving all the materials so they can create inside of these halabudas also. Another important role of art was actually just bringing childhood back to kids, because if we talk about stages of development, in the age of 11, 12, up to 17, they didn't have to grow up that quickly. As you know, many of them came and parents started to take them to humanitarian centers to help with work, etc. So a lot of kids had to grow up very quickly, and they didn't have time to be kids actually. So art is was a very safe and well-known tool for them. That's something they did from childhood, drawing on the floor with crayons, drawing on paper. So that was something they already knew how to do. Was something safe, but then also a bit more childish, because it's important to provide space to be silly when you are a teenager, when like they were running around, they were very unfocused, they were like 5 minutes drawing, then 10 minutes dancing, then doing theater and whatsoever. When I said we have not chosen this sport, I also meant that, for example, I didn't expect that I would enter the room and kids would be doing theater, and I would ask like, what are you doing? And they're like, we are playing Putin's funeral. And I'm like, okay, nice. Do you need any materials to make this bigger? And that's the main approach in working with teenagers with trauma. Like they provoke you when they talk, like they want to see your reaction as an adult, like, so what do you do to me if I say that we are now burying like imaginary Putin? And then you say, okay, good, if this helps you, why not? Do you need paper? Do you need, I don't know, do you need some music for this? Like, I can bring you a speaker, like, let's put some music, let's celebrate this if you want. And that's also what art is very good for. You can exaggerate these feelings, you can live them in this imaginary world, and that really helped them process the trauma. So they were playing Putin's funeral almost every day. I already knew how this game was looking, I was entering, and I'm like, he died again. Okay. And then, I mean, we talked a lot with our psychologist, with our supervisor, who told us, it's fine, give them more materials and blah, blah, blah. So of course, it's not just us deciding, let's do like this. We were consulting with experts in this. And it was a lot of things like this. Like you do just some random drawing workshop, and when kids feel safe, they most likely will draw war, even though the topic can be, I don't know, sunset or whatsoever, because they will draw the last sunset they saw before they left the country. And it's very important that you have a good facilitator in this moment, because when they are doing these childish things, it's actually unconscious processing of trauma all the time, because they are not only drawing, they are not only playing Putin's funeral, they are not only like doing some fun stuff, but they are all the time referring to what has happened to them. They somehow, through this experience, put this in chronological order in their head, and that's how the trauma, step by step by step by step, somehow is processed by them. And that's what I told, like, They can draw something and they say, oh, it's actually my city. And the drawing can look very abstract, like it's just some dots and whatsoever. And they say it's actually bombs, it's people being bombed, it's parts of the bodies laying on the floor. And the most important role for you as facilitator or alternative adult to whom this kid is showing the drawing is to be like, okay, it's important for me to see, not to be like, oh my God, we are not allowed to draw dead bodies. No, that's what I talked about art. Like it's the way to live the reality, but in a very safe, in very safe conditions when you don't have really like bad consequences for what you do. That's why like we as artists who worked with them, of course we would prefer to do some funky, nice, crazy stuff, but all the workshops, like especially first months of 2022 when we started working, all the workshops would end up talking about like, this is my experience, this is how I left the country, this is how I was sitting in the bomb shelter, this is how my cat died, this is like, if you want it or not, it's never just drawing. They draw it, but then they need to verbally also somehow try it on you if it's okay, if my experience is fine, like if you can relate to this, because this is again how they chronologically rebuild events in their head and then process it. So it should work together, like art, discussions, like it goes all in a complex. And then another very important thing that we noticed is that when we do artistic things with them, it helps them rebuild trust, because when the full-scale war started and when the war started in 2014, for many of them, the world just collapsed. Like they were like, this is so fucked up, I don't understand anything anymore. Like I don't trust this world because it's just like, it's so stupid and useless. And it was very, very visible even in like working with materials. First months we needed like to provide same colors for everyone. Like so you have blue pencil and I have blue pencil and you have blue pencil and you have blue pencil, because if someone doesn't have blue pencil, it's the end of the world. Because I need my own resources. My world just collapsed, so I need this blue pencil because you have it and you have it and you have it and I want it. And it was very visible, like how they were not sharing materials in the beginning. Like they needed their own set of materials, their own set, like I need my drawing. We tried a bit later on to do exercises when you draw and then I draw on your drawing and then you draw on my drawing and we exchanged the drawings. And then in the end of exercise, everyone was, I hated this exercise. Everyone ruined my drawing. It was perfect. It was not, of course, I mean, it was just the drawing, but they were like, I drew it for 2 minutes. It's so good. And then you added your fucking sun, and you added your snail, and you added your bombs, and like, I don't get it anymore. Like, it's not my drawing anymore. And they were so dissatisfied in the end of this exercise, and I was like, okay. I fucked up as a facilitator because I didn't give them the stability. I didn't give them their boundaries, their papers. I mean, it's important to try when they are ready to share, because I mean, when you work with a group, you need to try something to see if the group has proceeded, and at that moment they didn't. Like they didn't want anyone to touch their drawing. And that's a very important process, and that's why you cannot just have one art workshop with teenagers with war trauma. It's good, it will still have impact, but very short term. You need to have like, you can really see the change when you work with the same group, when you do theater, when you do drawing, when you do like different artistic methods, and you also talk a lot, they work with psychologists, and then you see the progress. And then from like, I don't trust anyone in this room, this is my pencil, this is my piece of paper, they go to, like, for example, I had a sticker lab with them, we were drawing stickers, it was like free topic, you can just draw stickers for yourself, whatever you want. And they were like going around and asking like, can you draw a sticker for me on my sticker pad? And I was like, oh, finally they allowed to touch their piece of paper. That's the sign of trust. I trust you because we are in a safe space and I trust you to draw this for me. And then it goes beyond. They start to do this in a safe space with their closest friends. Then they start to trust other people who are like not that close to them. Then they go outside of the center, this youth center, and they go outside and they're like, okay, actually this world is not that scary. I can trust also this person and this person. And that's how step by step they rebuilt trust from sharing the pencil to actually like sharing more resources with other people. As an example of, like very visual example of how their drawings will look like, in summer 2022 was the first time when we decided to do a common drawing. Let's all draw on the same canvas. For 2 hours they couldn't decide what to draw. The topic was summer or something, like something super general, because like you don't normally need like a very specific topic, because anyway they would come up with other things to draw. So for 2 hours they couldn't decide what to draw on this piece of canvas, and then in the end, as you can see, everyone drew a small piece. Like here's this, here's that. Like some people decided we will work on this part all together, but some people were very like, I have my own piece of canvas, and it means I don't feel safe to share the canvas with others. I need this piece and no one can touch it. And they were really fighting, like the artist who was doing this exercise, my colleague, she was really protecting them, because they were like, you are not allowed to draw here. Don't put pink, it should be blue. Like it was very wild. And then it was like this summer drawing in the end. And then in winter 2022, the group was already formed. It was not even a workshop. It was a kind of winter party when we were hanging in the Vasiluța Vasilake creative space in Cocoșul Roșu. With them, we just did like ending of the year, and we just put canvas in one of the corners and some of acrylic paints, and told them, if you feel like drawing today, you can also do this. But if you don't, you can like spend time here, or you can eat here, or you can dance here, blah, blah, blah. So it was like one of the options, not obligatory, it's not a workshop. We just had this canvas, it's that big actually. And then in the end, they drew something like this. And if you can see, like all the colors are somehow complementing each other. It's all blending together. And I saw the process. They were not fighting. They were just coming and adding something, leaving, dancing, drinking something, and then coming back. Oh, I want to add a Ukrainian flag here. And everyone was like, this is the best idea. We didn't have a Ukrainian flag here. Oh my! Like they were so excited about ideas. And that's when you see, like very visually, when you see that the progress is actually going. And art is very good for seeing the progress, because when you work with teenagers with trauma, it's very tangible, their change. Like you always have to listen carefully to how their language is changing from very war-related to just teenage language and talking about love and stuff. And you have to listen very carefully to see the change happening. But with art, you can actually like visualize it and see, aha, okay, we actually came to this point. As we also work with other teenagers, not only Ukrainian refugee teenagers, but also like teenagers from vulnerable groups, teenagers from LGBTQI community, teenagers from ethnic minorities, and etc. We noticed two differences when working with these groups. When we worked with teenagers with trauma, for the first months, result was very important. Like they needed to see the result after the workshop, immediately. Like we drew for 2 hours and I need to see the final drawing. If I don't see it, it drives me crazy. Again, like the world is falling apart, I don't see something I can actually like, and that is why, for example, ceramic workshops didn't work for us. We tried, and can you imagine, like they did a cup, it had to dry for 2 weeks. Then it was put in a kiln and had to like like the process was so long, and when the cup was ready, they were like, it's not even the color I wanted, it's like lagoon blue and I wanted like sea blue and different blue, and you're like, oh my god. And can you imagine like them waiting for 1 month and seeing like the result they didn't want? So everything we were doing for the first months, we were very aware of the result. You couldn't just do something for fun, because they needed to fulfill, because that's the only place where their future was predictable, where they could be like, okay, if I draw now, I have this result. If I do this now, I have this result. If we do this theater, we will have this. Like, it had to be very clear. While, for example, with Brave exhibition that was happening here, there were also girls from Ukraine, and there were girls from LGBTQI community and different girls from vulnerable groups, but they were not traumatized to that level anymore as those kids before. And for them, the process was very important. Like we did a huge thing. We were drawing graffiti. And they felt so rebellious, so wild, like, we are in the park drawing graffiti on the fresh air. Like, we are so cool, we are so brave as girls, like we do stuff outside. And then in the end, the paint started to crack, and it was not as we imagined at all. But they were like, okay, we just hang it on the wall, like it's fine, we will come up with something. Because for them, the process was important. And that's very important about art, that it could be used for enjoying the process more than result, or enjoying result no matter the process. But I mean, anyway, it's not like the process is painful, but then the result is beautiful. No, of course, it's all complementary, but just that's what we noticed. This difference was very clear. If kid has trauma, especially war trauma, or if a teenager doesn't have this war trauma. So then they were just like standing in the park, drawing on someone wrote something and someone wrote something on this, and no one was like, this is my text, why did you write on this? Everyone was like fine with mixing colors and etc. If we did this exercise in March 2022, it would be like the real fight, because I mean they would not want to share. Should I wrap that up right now?
If you have more, you can
yeah. So I just saw that there is the last slide, and I didn't expect that coming, because. I thought maybe there is something more to talk about, but it's not. Just to add a bit more, like when you work with teenagers from vulnerable groups, some of the patterns of using art are very similar, because they are also traumatized, especially girls who went through violence. This trauma is a bit similar to war trauma, like the conditions are a bit similar, but it's still different. Like we've never experienced anything like working with teenagers for the first months of the full-scale invasion. It was completely different from all the work we did before. And then, it helps us with work with other groups, because now we experienced work with the most severe trauma, and we know how to work with other traumas. And it doesn't mean that the art we do has to be serious. Like when I talk about this, that we have to be careful, we have to do this and this and that, it doesn't mean that the art has to be like very limited. No, it's very wild, it's very silly, it's very funky, it's still very abstract in a way, but there are just some limits that you should consider when you work with teenagers with war trauma. And it doesn't fit to the screen, but yeah.
That will smash
Yeah, thank you for coming, it's important, but let's go to the second part. I mean, I think you all know how to live in the countries with colonial past, with fucked up empire presence still in the country. And even though in Moldova there is no war, it's very, very, like, we still feel it very much because it's very, very close and the neighbors are like very good neighbors. And I mean, working with teenagers and drawing with them is not something small. And what you told about like big organizations doing some big stuff, you don't look at this. And I also think that it's very important what we as small organizations do, what we as small activists, we are not actually that small, but as we are perceived like small organizations, small activists, it's very important what we do from the bottom, because that's how the empires are destroyed. They're never destroyed from the up, or like from, it has to be fueled bottom up. And that's how one day, hopefully, fucking neighbor will be destroyed and the patriarchy as well, because it's all interconnected and interrelated. So that's it from my side, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Anna. I will change the presentation, and I will try to make it clickable.
Great job. And very beautiful presentation. I know who is doing from your team. I feel like now a little bit ashamed of my presentation. It's very nice designing. Nothing is perfect. Here we are. Is it a full screen?
Yes. Now, sorry that I didn't put this before, but I think now it should be off.
No, it goes by itself. Just how. Okay. I guess now it should work. We don't need a break, yes? We can move. Yeah. Okay. Hello, and thanks for coming. Let me get myself comfortable. And I mean, it's very interesting how actually, like, unfortunately, all of us are feeling it, like the war economy working, how there are like famous war and not famous war. There are like wars where the world is reflected. There are some wars that you need to prove to be reflected, and unfortunately, everyone is living in the same planet, and somehow it's very hard to hear about the war in the theory and the books, and one day you wake up to the war and you don't know what to do, and before that day the life was different, and after that day it's just one big day that you don't know when will be finished. But before speaking about the art after the war, let's give some glimpse of how it was, the places where the art now is reflected, very much about the post-war, before. So, public spaces like Yerevan is kind of like Armenia is an ancient country and Yerevan is an old country, struggling with different heritages, like USSR was like very crucial to identity, and but still we have very nice small in the arts where we have this project of having like smiley Yerevan. Artists were reflecting to things and what they would like to see, like bringing happiness to the city and so on. And this was the project which was done before the war, so mostly you will walk on the city and all the streets are about the happiness and how cool the life is. And then COVID started, and it was a little bit also reflected the mural and also like this design and everything. It was all about like, you know, COVID and everything, and the war, second Nagorno-Karabakh war happened just after the COVID. But also we have an old district where we can see again the public art, and again the popular culture was into like bringing colors, bringing like new identities, and this was kind of also flourishing this horizontal way of expressing yourself, and you don't need to have a permission. This is an amazing city. You don't need a permission, and no one will ever clean it because it's all considered as like a public space. But then political art started to come more and more into the street and into the walls of the street, and it's also about I mean, it's a very interesting story because there was a journalist asked one of the politicians like a question that he didn't like it, and he was like, "Are you sure that I'm not going to eat you?" So it was his answer. So this mural is dedicated to it, you know. And this is also another of public art about back in 2015. It was against of militarism, and Arta created, as you see, a tank from out of paper, and then going towards the parliament, saying like enough of speaking like military and so on, and he was jailed for 8 years for this action because it was considered as he's attacking the parliament. But just to mention, it's a paper. It's very hard to attack paper with paper. Then lots of things was about suicide in the army, police violence, and so on, and mostly about speaking, because after the first Nagorno-Karabakh war, the narratives in both countries were the same. You know, we should keep this monies for the military budget because, you know, enemy is getting more and more weapons, we should get even more, and this was like kind of like who will get more weapons. So it was also like lots of actions against that, like let's talk, like the woman on the pink is saying like let's stop the war economy, let's be the one who can stop this, and so on. But the situation after the war changed very crucially, and you know, now we are facing this era of peace building and everything. So in order to create peace, the first thing that our government is also pretending to be that nothing has happened, like it's all cool, like, you know, more than 5,000 boys were killed and 120,000 people were displaced, but it's fine. We are creating, we shouldn't remember anything. And then the murals, which were like, you know, happy murals in before, become like kind of like a preservation of memories of the people, and mostly you can see a big building, see the boys like this, and it's definitely the building that the boy was living, and it's quite not easy to walk in the city and see all these buildings with the boy names, and but it's also kind of the way that families are, you know, afraid that you know, their son lost his life for nothing, and nothing happened, no one appreciating, you know, this kind of like frustration, which is because of this strange communication. And then the street art to speak about the peace, trying to reflect that it's unending, we should somehow come to the peace. And but we can see that as much as you can speak about the peace, and then when there is a war escalation and you speak about the peace, you are taken as a betrayer. You know, like in this situation when the enemy is next door, you speak about the peace, you want us to be weak. So, and then this is also a different concept of peace came to reality when you speak about the peace because you are weak. And this is also very sick and very dangerous perspective to speak about the peace. And there was also very interesting work by one of the visual artists, Shoghakat, and this is like butterflies, and this is dedicated to all the boys. And in Armenian military service is obligatory, so when you are 18 you are taken for 2 years military service, so it's mostly that young boys were killed, and this was also kind of like symbolizing that it's mostly like after high school, like you finish the high school and then you are taken to the military service, and this was kind of symbolizing their life, that it was that short. And then again, coming during the war and after the war, it was also very much hard to understand that in general, overall, global media is kind of ignoring, and there were different type of activism trying to be, especially, you know, you mostly hear the start of the war and you don't hear the end, so you just read that there's something started and we don't know what is happening, and because other places another war is starting, so artists were also feeling themselves a little bit obliged to speak and making a little bit of kind of activism. And another layer came with the because now it's like it's 5 years past, and not we can speak that the good things are happening, but they were also trying to understand what does it mean militarism in the kindergarten, what does it mean in the families, and it also touches the new moms of the boys. And there was like a very interesting project by 4+ photography and the fears of the mom of the boys who should be taken to the military services too soon. And it's really very interesting, and it's really different perspective, because this kind of narratives are never told when we are speaking about peace, about the wars. It's fear of mother and so on. And there were like this is my student, and he was an amazing fairy tale, and there are some performances based on his work. Unfortunately, he never saw it, but he was like a talented and amazing guy. But it's also something like, when the war is happening, how to heal yourself in order to start to heal the others, and when the people are left alone with their pain and with their sorrow, they don't know what to do, because it seems that everybody in the pain, and this pain is like soaking you out, and you don't know where to go, and each of the families are trying to understand how they can survive. And it was like initiative of his mother. And then there was also another layer of this memory book, and also like kind of stories from the soldiers were started together, and also to speak about the different sides of the war, because it's very hard. You know, even in our history books, we learn on this year, this war has started, this happened, but it's never about the people's stories, it's about the generation. And we know, like, you know, Second World War happened, this happened, that happened, and there are some movies about the things, but private stories and the personal stories are like really lost, especially from the man perspective, because whenever you are in the war, you should be either masculine winner, or, you know, or there is no other chance. So even there is no space for the men to speak about their fears, to speak about their emotion, because it's just the role that we gave to the men, and this is they should deal with this. So it was also interesting where we can also see other kind of perspective. There was like a very interesting project by CSN Lab. It was about zine, you know, this book type, and it was about a woman from both sides, like from Armenia and from Azerbaijan, trying to find, because in Armenian zina datar means ceasefire, so there was like a word game trying to speak about, like, is there any way of speaking about the thing. There's also a very touchy documentary by Shoghakat Mlke-Galstyan. It's 1488, and there were lots of drones used during the war, and people were lost, and there were no bodies. So in order to identify that your son or brother is killed, you need to give a DNA test, and then you are given a code, and then you wait with this code, and you're checking, is there any news? And this was a documentary by her documenting their waiting for his brother, who was also a very talented piano player. And this wait from Shoghakat's family lasted 2 years. For 2 years they were like checking this code for constantly. It's not a long one, but it's very touchy one. I guess the world leaders should see this. And as you can see, the war is also something which is very much reflected in the social media, and social media is like kind of tools of speaking it, and also tools of using it, like kind of archiving it, speaking up, and also unfortunately social media is becoming source of information for lots of the cases, because big medias are also not reporting lots of things. And another layer of reality came where, again, now you see this person is Arek, and he is an amazing, very, very famous for funny photography. Like, you know, he's got this like the most ridiculous moments, and he was at war, and he was also documenting the reality other side. And whenever you call him like a war photographer, he always says like, no, I'm not a war photographer. I'm a photographer who was at the war. So it's different, and yeah. And there is also this Balochic series by the same artist that he was trying to create, because the kids were playing here and there, and the bombs were there. So he was creating these little creatures like graffiti to make a little bit colorful the reality. And again, when we are speaking about the war, we are speaking about people's life which will never be the same, and either you are getting victimized, and especially with the humanitarian support for the countries, you should become like a victim and there is no way, or you are becoming this, you know, the colors are really like dividing. But it was very nice exhibition by two curators, Edik and Arek, and it was a very nice questioning about the places that are left after the war, because there are lots of initiatives to recreate, rebuild, and the question is like, maybe we should keep the places like that in order to really remember what the war is, and not really go to reconstruction and making it more beautiful, because sometimes, and this was in their manifest, because sometimes it's very easy to forget what is a bomb doing. One bomb can do to a district, and because they're just rebuilding and making it ready for the new ones. Again, political art is like really very, very the only place where the people can do. It's like really, it's like the New Year celebration of the Pashinyan New Year celebration to the kids. It was like, I wish you to be brave, and this is like a ridiculous, or for example, who told that the border between the countries should be happy, they should be full of pain. These kind of ridiculous things are also reflected very much, and yeah. It's very interesting about the post-war music industry because we can also see like they are trying to show not only like this victory and this kind of like making romanticizing like how amazing is it to go and die and so on, but also showing a little bit the other side. And I think that I wish that we were like both of the nations were like more reflective on the things that the war is bringing, because I don't think that the ones who have seen the war, they will ever be wanting it more. And there are lots of charity concerts for the soldiers, for the rehabilitations and soldier house rehabilitations, but everything happening is out of the state, out of the government, that this is everything like on the civil society and also on the artists. This is also very strange, like music healing workshops which are happening for the displaced kids. And it's also very interesting when we are speaking about intangible cultural heritage, because tangible is like destroyed and it's destroyed with every second. And it's also very interesting about the heritage, because we want to preserve them, but how you preserve the heritage? You just leave it. You just like, you need to sing that songs in order to keep it. You need to speak that language in order to keep it. And it's about like and it was like one of the kids told like once, I was like, they always tell me that I need to keep my identity, and he was like, I even don't understand what is it. And it was like, yeah, we kind of like, especially when we are speaking about like forcefully displacement, we speak about the kids and we want them to keep their identity, but it's not identity for them, it's their life and it's their language, it's their like whatever they do, it's not that. And there was like a sunrise, Stepanakert. Stepanakert was the kind of capital city of Nagorno-Karabakh, and there was a festival happening there, bringing lots of bright artists all over, and this festival is also trying to be continuing, but it's also struggling with the concept. There is another series like, because also art is not a, kind of when you see the war and not everyone is like accepting in their families that you can become an artist. So like art as a profession is kind of like deleted from the list of normal profession, and this initiative is really supporting the kids and giving like very nice stipends so in order to keep them in art. A lot of psychological support is happening for the women, because women are also the ones who are struggling with traumatized and really PTSD men from the war, and it's really also something that we heal very little, and it's very hard for the men to speak about their problems, and especially after the war, especially when the war kind of like you lost it, and it's also kind of, it brings like even more aggression to the families and more to the domestic violence. And when in the living room by Artas that Rada was mentioning, we created like a community space, and we try to, we do like a joint cooking, we do drawing, art therapy session, music session, women empowering, like creating stories, creating the feeling that they are the lead with Telervo, Kalinen, like this project they were creating their moment of the leader. But it's, first of all, it's a space where they can come and gather and just meet each other. This is also something else that is taken away, that you had your community and now you are all over the place, you don't know where to, you don't even have a place to celebrate your birthday or something. We also had once birthday because the kid was the wanted a birthday. It's also like a very interesting whenever they say like, what do you do in order to keep peace, in order to keep yourself sane. I guess this is also to be closer to the community. we do lots of workshops, creating something together, but maybe, and also working with the mothers. And unfortunately, I'm really feeling very bad for the men that they're really closing themselves for all these kind of therapies and all the kind of sharings, because I guess they are the most who needed help, and unfortunately, like now, nothing is like reported from Armenia in the media, and or reported very little because, I don't know, Gaza, because of, I don't know, Syria, all the things which are happening all over the world. But I mean, it's a thing that it's really we should all do, no matter how long is your pieces. It's like 1 second, 3 minutes, 3 years, or 30 or 100. It's we never should take it as granted, because it was a huge dream for a generation, and now we are living a life where you are really in between of these concepts and finding yourself, what you can do, and every moment of your personal happiness feels like a huge sense of guilt, because it's someone else's pain, and even with your happiness you can't express it because you're kind of like, oh, what if someone else? And this is so sick on so many levels, and this is also something else which is also coming when you are working with the communities. You feel yourself even sometimes awful that you have a complete family, and this is all the things that are happening. But I guess what is like what is I wish to happen, that the nations who have the conflict together, and we think that it's the end. It's never the end, and I guess we should always take the courage to accept the situation and to work with it, because this is also something else that is also happening with the culture sector. It's again, we are creating these again, the healing processes again with the same stereotypes, like the enemy, victim, and everything. So, and when we are generalizing everything, we are creating a very nice base, very strong base for the future conflicts. And I think that I wish the world will go away from generalizing, and we will speak about the people, we will speak about the person, and we will be brave enough to speak about the personal choice. And for 30 years, Armenia and Azerbaijan were like going through lots of peace building projects, and as you can see, weapons won the whole peace building processes, and again, like big countries are surprised that it didn't work out. So it's I guess the power of art is huge, and all the projects are really there, and they are really healing the people. And even if the state is not doing anything, and the big UN or so on are not doing anything, every single artist has this power of sharing, and we can share. And as it's very famous, sharing is caring, and each of us, if we will heal like 0.00001% of this pain and hate which is happening in the world, we can do something in this world. And I want to call for action, for healing and sharing and spreading the love. And if, no matter how much hate is coming towards us, maybe we can stop that hate on us and not transform it to the ones whose not fault it is. That's it from my side.
Yay!
What is the plan now? There are some.
We can look at this.
It's still there. It was in there.
Turn it off, and I think we can move. Or do you guys need a break? We can also.
Can we have the questions?
Yes, we can have the questions. Anna, would you like to join us? So, questions, I think also we can do it. Sorry. We can also just start with your question.
Yeah, I can just go for both of you. A short comment and a question. We were talking about survival guilt. Survival guilt.
Guilt, yes.
Yeah, that's very, very, very important thing you mentioned. And I wanted to ask Anna, if you have worked or you experienced working with children that came from Warsaw or from local communities that have autism, and if there's anything you could recommend on that, just assuming that maybe you.
I know only one girl who openly told us she had autism, and it was very noticeable when she first came because it was very hard to navigate for her. It was very hard to navigate for her in our center, what we did, we were there whenever she needed it, but we were not forcing it. So, for example, we have stairs in the center, and she couldn't use them because she was afraid to walk the stairs alone. So we were just like keeping an eye when she was going to the stairs, and someone from the team was around. And then she was just like asking herself, like, can I go with you? Or I was proposing, like, oh, are you going down? Because I'm also going down. And she was like, oh, nice, let's go together. Like, there was no space where you could be alone actually in the center because it was a lot of teenagers. There was a quiet room, so to say, but it's also like there were 5-6 people normally around there. So we asked her if she wanted to go to our office from time to time to sit in silence and to kind of sit without people. And she said yes, and that was the option for her. And I was normally her like trusted adult. She was always looking for me and then like asking me. So see, with whom the person has the more connection. And then, like, anytime I saw she was, like, very lost and she didn't know what to do, I was like, do you want to go to the quiet space and sit there? And she's like, yes, please take me there. When she was going to the center, like, frequently, we could really see the progress, and her mom told us a lot that she started to do less things, like, for example, she was, like, cleaning hands all the time, like for 10 times. Like when she first came, she needed to clean hands in the center a lot of times. And then like there was one day when we had this Christmas party, and she ate pizza without washing her hands, and she's like just eating pizza with everyone from the same box, which was like huge for her. Because normally we ordered a separate pizza for her because she didn't want other people to touch the food, and then the progress was so big. Like her mother was like, she came home and she didn't wash hands. She just like went to the room and did something. Like so, mother even was surprised with the. So we were not really pushing anything on her, but we were always present. Now she's not going to the center anymore because she doesn't want to. Like she found other places to socialize here, which is fine. But yeah, that would be probably my recommendation, to always like be around.
And in terms of artistic methods, did she have any preferences? Did you try with her anything in particular?
She really loved to draw, and that was a big plus for us because she was attending all the drawing artistic workshops. And I mean, there she was okay sharing the space with everyone. But what was important for her is to come to us after the workshop to show the works she did on her iPad, or like she really needed like a face-to-face time with the facilitator. So it was not enough for her, the group, because the group is not giving her like fulfillment, but it was important for her to share her art one-to-one.
Individual interaction. Okay, so group interaction is not the.
No, she like it was also beneficial for her in other way, but always like we always left the space in the end. If she wanted to talk, like there should be always someone available, so not to be like, sorry, the workshop is over. Why? Because then she's closing immediately.
So have a personal contact.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
But it was only one case that we were aware of. Other than that, I think some other kids had it, but they didn't. Parents did not communicate to us, so they will be somehow.
Yeah. This is also something sometimes when the parents are bringing the kids to the therapy session, they don't say it, because when it's not seen disability or a problem or anything, they never mention it because they afraid that
stigmatization.
Yeah. And this is also something that sometimes you have a group of kids and they're all traumatized. It's not something, but with autism and everything connected, all these like sensory things connected. It's getting even worse when we are not aware, because for example once we had a music session and one kid, it was like a kalimba, and he was attached to this kalimba and he was like really into it, and we felt that he's like really finding his voice and his instrument. He was like really into it, and but at the same time, at the end, we understood that the kid needs a special place. At the end of the session, I approached the parent and I said, would you like to consult with anyone? Would you like to speak with anyone? Because we think that maybe not all the emotions you can. But the parents was like in a completely denial. Sometimes you don't know you should work with the parents or with the kids, because sometimes it's also a little bit, this struggle that you have, that you see sometimes something, but you're very gently approaching, because the parent is also traumatized. We're gently approaching the parents, but if you see that it's blocking, it's better that they simply bringing, because the other block will be that they're not bringing the kid anymore. Yeah, we also had this.
Yeah, that's very case. In our case, mother was super open. And she was very she was giving feedback to us all the time, and it was very helpful, because we knew, okay, this is working, this is going good, this is not mother was like.
So you could cooperate with her. Okay.
Yeah, then it's perfect.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I have a question prepared, but I'm also open to doing it, to reversing it and having audience questions first, if anybody has a question ready, I think.
If I may have another comment, I think it was very, very valuable thought about, we know that generalizing is not good, but then I never thought about it this way, that generalizing makes us miss the picture, the whole picture, and the solution is going back to personal stories. I mean, we've been taught forever that personal stories are so important. Narrative approach, blah blah blah, storytelling. I mean, but it's the first time I see it in this perspective, and I think it's very eye-opening just for me. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's and it's also very different when you're working with the stories which were like hundreds of years ago, and it's very hard when it's like it's your story and I'm listening to it, and I think that we should also use this not to give to the generations to deal with it, but be the generation who can heal. Not to leave it that it's like it's my grandmother's stories who was but it's my story, and I'm telling you my story, and you listening to my story, and my voice is heard. So it's also like a kind of like something else which is happening with the storytelling and the narratives, that we sometimes documenting it the first generation is documenting it, and we just give the problem to the second or the third generation to work with it. But what if we work with the first generation? Why we wait that long? You know, it's also like something, a thought in my mind that it's always because Armenia has also like had a genocide, and I worked a lot with the genocide memories and everything. And when you are working with new stories, it's kind of the same, and you're like, oh my God, the only thing that we created in this life is just new way to kill each other, you know. And it's like I was like, oh my God, I have my grandmother's stories and I have my friend's story, and they're so much above the same feelings. And I was like, yeah, we need to work with the stories of now, and not to documenting it always, because sometimes it's also like with these peace building processes, it's like, let's document everything, let's document it, you know, let's have all the videos and proofs and everything, because we will go to the court, we will go to this place, we will go there, but it means that nothing we are doing it now, we're just like having these documentation processes only. It's in Armenian case, I can say so.
And are you connecting these, like specifically like these stories of your generation now with stories of the genocide? Is there something you
I mean, when a person feels that his life in danger because of his nation, it doesn't mean how many of you are killed, but if your existence is not acceptable and you are receiving it through the narratives, this is the first feeling that you have. And if you are coming from the nation which is like a genocide, you are coming, okay, this is the same thing. And you are not giving a rational impulses, you are not analyzing, you are just victimizing yourself one more time, and it's genocidal processes, and you are there. It's a hard feeling to have it.
I want to start maybe with the last slide of your presentation, which also connects to your presentation, and it's this discussion about the patriarchy. And Shoghakat showed so many examples of boys and young men, and like this very patriarchal, masculine, very specific way narrative that is applied to what it means to fight a war. Is this a conversation that is happening in the general public in Armenia? Is this something that people are discussing and deconstructing, and is this something that you work with in your workshops with teenagers?
I mean, I wish that it was a general conversation all over the world, because I guess this is something which is not really happening, because maybe, and you know, this is also something else. Everyone who was at the war, they are coming with the sense that they were the heroes. They saved someone, they did this, because this is kind of a survival mode where they can keep themselves. And you never know what happened, what this person saw. But this kind of a narrative that you hear, and it's, and like it was also like during all the wars that you have kind of the same stories repeated in a different people's perspective. So it's also kind of like there are these surviving, heroic storylines that the war survivors are using. And unfortunately, when we are in this like strange political situation, every single critical discussion is accepted as a betrayal from something.
Yeah.
No matter what process is it, but because patriarchy, the state, and whatever you say, they don't like critical thinking. As soon as you question anything, the first thing is like, denial of this question. And I wish that this will happen And maybe this is on the level of the kitchen talk of the private people, but still, when you see a boy, when you have a person in your workshop, in order to get there, you really need a long way. And sometimes the society are very crucial on the boys with the economic expectations of money generation. You know, they should generate some money, and it's just a young 18-year-old who had 2 years of war, and then he's back to his social life, and he needs to earn money after a month. And this is where he is now, and there is no space of emotions and reflections, and also there are very low chances that I can link to this guy. You know, he's somewhere close in his emotions. He will never appear for the workshop. He will never come for the performance. He will absolutely shut his emotions, and maybe this is the general thing with the shut emotions. But these emotions will escalate somewhere. This will escalate in the violence, this will escalate in the, I don't know, crazy driving on the street, you know, this like searching for a conflict every second. This will escalate something. It's not something that it will like, you know, disappear to suck itself out. No, unfortunately it's not working the same way, and unfortunately the domestic violence is getting higher and higher.
We do work with this topic, but not like very straightforward, because we don't like straight. No, but we never work straightforward, because we are informal, artistic, etc. So it depends on the age a lot. So when we work with a group that is more like 12, 13, 14, we don't go that deep into colonial things, patriarchy, etc. But when we work with more like teenage young adults, so we're like 15, 16, and like 18 plus sometimes, then I mean we have a lot of reflection with girls, which impact patriarchy has on them. And then vice versa with Ukrainian teenagers, we work also a lot with like topics of feminism, and it's very like this. It's very messy right now because again of this heroization, you cannot really talk a lot about what is bad and what is not, because now we need this stage of like just fighting and going, but then also teenagers who live here, they don't live in that reality anymore, so you need to detach them somehow, and they need to adjust to this new reality where they cannot just go and fight. Like we had a lot of fights in the center in the first month, like all the toys were actually like guns, or like every bottle was just like, you were going like this all the time, and you understand why is this happening, but then you also have to change this narrative, because I mean in the normal life it's not really acceptable, because this will definitely lead to some violence, to domestic violence and etc. Yeah, but like normally girls who apply for our like projects for girls, they are like super knowledgeable, and they talk a lot about the influence of patriarchy on them. Especially like we have a group of girls from Gagauzia who are experiencing this influence more than other regions of Moldova, and they are very like aware of the impact patriarchy has on them, and they actually teach us sometimes, not us. Yeah, but we try to connect this narrative, but also like not really saying it like this or that.
Just to share a small experience working with kids in artistic ways, I was asked to, how do you say, refurbish an old piece of women, the one you do all your routines and blah blah blah, and it was in pink. Vanity, yes, a vanity, and it was painted in pink. So the kindergarten master asked me, "Can you do something to this piece of furniture that can be so that it doesn't look so gender assigned, like pink, women, blah blah blah." So I made out of it a frog with two eyes and things like that, and they still were able to use it as a mirror. So when I brought it there, we had a small presentation, we were talking about it, and we asked the kids, "So what is this actually?" And they were like, "It's a vanity." So what is this vanity, who is this vanity for? And they were like, well, for girls. But then why just for girls? Can a boy use it? Yes, actually, the boy could use it. So it was an interesting way of reshaping, deconstructing a thing that was assigned to a gender role and make it general or unisex or whatever you want to call it. And it was just by artistic means, like repainting it, making something fun out of it, without talking colonialism, patriarchy, I don't know what.
Yeah, we also talk about, without like saying directly, we talk a lot about feminist cities and how they would look like. So from the urbanist perspective, also like about this reshaping, like we have this exercise when we create a city which would be comfortable for us as girls to live in, and then we realized, oh my god, how much patriarchal shit is in just like infrastructure and how the city is built and how it's not adjusted also to our needs. So yeah, we do it more also like this, talking about urbanism, blah, 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 but then it all ends up with
Patriarchy is also very much linked with the dreams. When you're asking about the dreams and asking like, what is your wish? What you would like to become? What are your biggest wishes? Either to kill someone, either to do something. It's also like when we were working with the youth in the camps, and it was about the dreams and which kind of wishes to have. The first 5 or 6 days, you were just like facing this kind of like, I want the biggest car, the biggest house, the biggest this, to kill this specific person, to destroy this specific part, and then when you are going, working and exploring, and then I want to become a football player, I want to become a chef, and it's coming to your personal. And I think that with these healing processes, I guess, and even with all the empowering projects and everything, it's so much happening with the girls, young girls, and such a little projects are happening and happening with youth and boys. And you are entering the schools and seeing like 10-year-old girls, they already know what they want. They're aware of their body, they're aware of their wishes. And then you see like these 10-year-old boys, not a single project have been through. He didn't have any other alternative, very gender-specific clubs he was attending, and very gender-specific like narratives he was, the family put in his head. And then we expect that this boy, when he will be in his 40s, will do something else. I think this is also like something which really makes me sometimes crazy, that the healing process, this education is really very much about one gender, and we were always speaking about, we should that speak, but even like coming from a donor perspective, when you say like, I want to create like a camp for youth, they were like, can we make it for girls?
Yeah.
Why can't we make it mixed gender? Why can't, all these things are very much blockades for the healing processes, where we are making like, let's keep it nothing about, I'm not questioning feminism, I'm not questioning that we should smash the patriarchy, but the process of it can't happen only one side. We should heal their traumas too. Otherwise, we are stuck with this, having very much mature women, having zero position for decision making, but dealing with all these bullshit decisions that they are there. Yeah, maybe this is not the right vocabulary I should use. But still, it's a friendly conversation.
No, I think it also, I mean, patriarchy affects everybody. It doesn't affect just, I mean, it's a whole system. It affects male people as well as female, and yeah. I was really interested in this thing that you mentioned, Shoghakat, that being peaceful is equated to being weak. Also, like in this gendered lens, obviously, but is this something that you address, for example, in the living room, that you try to transform this idea of, you know, especially like in the situation in Armenia, that you transform it into, well, peaceful does not have to equal weak?
It's a very interesting perspective, and it's a very interesting new vocabulary, because, I mean, when you say like, I work with peace in Armenia, everybody's like, oh, come on, that, this is not something we want, because I guess the war takes away your dreams and takes away the concept of peace. And now, whenever you are speaking about the peace, with the word peace, it's a block, because they say like, I know how the peace is coming. We saw how the peace is happening. We are, you know, kind of, you know, it was like a very stupid story, but there is a TikTok video of Azeri soldiers playing football with Armenian soldiers' head, and it was like a viral, and Aliyev's private account or social media, he liked it. Okay, and this was every single time when I can say like the word peace, someone is telling me this TikTok story. But what we are doing in the living room, we try to understand what is peace and what is needed in order to create peace. And what we are doing, we mostly maybe not naming it in order, but speaking about all the components that could bring to the concept of the peace, and how a person can feel themselves secure, how the person can feel themselves safe, and what that doesn't mean to feel yourself safe. This is also something else, like to feel yourself safe is a part of peace. That you know that is, because also peace is very much now interpreted as a political, you know, now this president meets with that president, they want to sign that contract, and after that contract, and it's very much politically involved, but it's a very essential human condition. And in the living room, we never speak about the peace directly, but we're always creating these conditions in order to create the peace, because we're interpreting that if your personal well-being on the level of healed trauma, then this is the state that you can speak about peace. With the wording peace. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Just imagine that Azeri soldier who was at the checkpoint after this, and they were like leaving and they were making fun. You know, this is all the things that this 12-year-old kid saw. I mean, like, and after that, and now someone from the state says that this is peace. This is such a miscommunication, and that's why, you go any war situation, it's like, I bring peace, and they're like, oh, the first thing that I don't want it, because you never know what is it. Yeah. Interesting word, peace. But it's very funny, because peace in Armenian means bad.
Bad.
And there was like, we knew that peace is kind of peace is peace. Yeah.
I find it really interesting because both of you are creating safe spaces in different contexts, obviously, but I think with a very similar approach. And today we had a lot of like trust building exercises in the workshop that Shoghakat you conducted. And I'm wondering, in both of your works, do you notice how this trust and maybe also like confidence and feeling of safety with the people who are part of these workshops or programs that you work in that it translates to their everyday life? Do they reflect this back to you? Is this something that you can observe?
As I mentioned, we see this happening when the trust starts from sharing resources to going out and like trusting the world a bit more. But for us, trust is a lot connected with confidence, because we really see how teenagers become more confident when they have trust in us as alternative adults who created this safe space. We had a case of a Ukrainian boy who was not speaking for 2 months at all. Like, he was quiet. He was interacting without words. He was just bringing food to others, like bringing materials. He was just like quietly doing something, but he was not speaking. And then one day he entered the center and he was like, "Hello, everybody!" That was the first time that we heard his voice, and he was like, "Oh my God, this happened on my way to the center." La, 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 la. He was talking so much that day, and now he's like communicator normally, but he needed 2 months to start talking with others. He was interacting differently, and that's a lot about trust and about individual processes, how much time it takes for different people to build trust with the space they are in. And he was behaving the same in other settings. Like, we've been to other settings when we saw this kid, and he was just doing things quietly. And now we see him, like, now he went to our theater course, and he was one of the main actors, and he was like playing on the stage very confidently. And like, you really see that his confidence has grew so much. And so did trust to the world, to the audience, to other people. So yeah, for us, it's something we really keep an eye on.
Absolutely sharing the same experience, but also it's a kind of like small indicator of the trust when the group is also opening up about their feelings and speaking up. And also it's another level of empowerment that you can see, kind of like a waving away, is where they're confident enough to have their own dreams and not inheriting their parents' dreams, but having their own dreams. Because also this is kind of when you're working with the kids or youth, they are too little to understand the full scope, what is happening from all the perspective, but they are kind of like sponges, like taking their parents' dreams immediately without really fully understanding what is it, and duplicating for themselves. And sometimes I can see that when they could create their own wishes and they could speak about it with their parents, I guess this is kind of a place where you can create a trust, that trust to themselves, trust to their community, and also trust for their own empowerment in order to speak up. But I guess the very, very first indicator is when they are speaking about the things, about the dreams, only about their, it's not generalized something, it's just their dream, because he wanted to have like a purple, purple pen, and this is his personal dream. It's not, this very high and patriotic dream. It's his dream, and it's kind of, it's cool, it's his. And yeah, but also like sometimes it's like working with seeds, you just plant it, and then you just water it, and then you see what it goes. And sometimes you can see that there was a boy in your camp, and now he's in conservatory, and you're like, wow, what is happening? You are in the conservatory, it's such a great thing, it's just a great move. And but he was like, oh, I was a part of this, and it stays with me, and this all the work that we do, it's not seen now. It will be seen in a year, 2 or 10. It will never seem like after after, especially it's also like kind of like a donor perspective, how many were changed, what was your outcome, what was your, I don't know, key activities, but nothing that we do with this healing will be seen. But we will see it after the generation will be in the decision making, when we will see that there are the majority who is making the decision, having a different experience and different perspective, and that's why sometimes it's very hard to see, and sometimes we also fail. This is also happening where you're creating something, but then you're creating something, and then there is a political news, which like in a millisecond is just destroying everything that you are building, all the trust that you have building, and the first thing is and you are not in the zero place, you are even in the minus place, because you are working with a disappointment, because a political situation happened. And but I do believe that the things that we are doing and the things that we are building up, it will show its result or whatever we name it after a while when this process will be over. But it's a very fragile process, because really it's very much, sometimes I say like, I wish that like we just like shut down the social media or the news and we just like isolating everyone. Even if we see like the political news are getting very viral, we even having like, we are having no phone days, like we are putting all the phones in the box, because it's impossible. Just imagine you are speaking about like trauma and something, and there are this kind of videos happening in TikTok. And that's it, like you can't continue working. And you are like, it's all gone, it's also hard for you, it's also hard for them, and you don't know what to do, where to start. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes you build something, but then a stupid man tweeting something, and then we are on the situation minus.
Yeah, you know. But getting back to parents, as you said, like parents are actually very cool indicator for us in work with youth also, because it normally starts with like, what happened to my kid, and it either goes like, it's so open, so cool, it became like, it started sharing, it goes like, hey, positive, yay, like what happened to my kid, yay, or it goes to like, what happened to my kid? It started to like speak up, it started to say no, and in both ways.
He was a normal kid.
Like why is it? We have so many conflicts right now, and then we are like, congratulations, now you have a healthy kid who knows the boundaries, like welcome to the life where your kid finally trusts you to
enough to address.
Yeah, and it's also very funny how kids transfer information to parents normally, because we once had a conflict when a mother came to us because her daughter called her and told that a group of lesbians came to the camp. And the mother was like, what happened there? And it's actually, we just had a visit from Gender.m who was doing research. It was called a read with like parents and it was, but the kid was just like, she was so excited and she was telling this like, something cool happened today. But then the mother was like, what the fuck happened? And it's also so funny because then, and then you're trying to explain to parents that it's actually cool that your kid is so open and she shares it with you, like it's so good. You became closer actually, but the way kids share is
this is this is ridiculous. For example, like once this kind of like ridiculous story. One of the kids, and because in the company there are lots of boys has like long hair or something. He said like, I told my mom and said that like boys are having the long hair, and my mom asked like, are they having mustaches? And he was like, yeah, I told that they have mustaches, and I was like, I told that you also have a mustache, and I was like, really? And I was like, yeah, that they are so hairy, and I was like, thanks. It's boosting my confidence like hell. But it was like, this is how they see the world, this is how they report the things, and now I guess the family think that it's a transgender, something is happening. But good, the parents didn't call it, maybe they know that their kids is interpreting the world the way they see. Yeah, sometimes you hear about yourself so especially with the natives and so on. Yeah. It's fun, it's fun. It's fun, it's really fun. It's really fun. Sometimes it's ridiculous heavy, sometimes you go and cry yourself in the pillow, sometimes you're taking these long showers and want to kill yourself. But this is only 10%, the rest is fun. The rest is really fun.
Because it's never let them know your next move, that's how they act. That's how they act normally.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I have a million more questions, and I'm sure people also have questions, but I think also looking at the clock, unfortunately, to wrap it up slowly, and I would like to thank you, the audience, very much for your great questions, and if you have more, please also stick around or find another moment these days to ask. Thank you to Vladimir, to Oberlicht, to Christy for the documentation, to everyone who came together and made this possible, and thank you so much to Shoghakat and Anna for your wonderful presentations. It was super, super cool. And
Thank you for the invitation. I just want to say that unless we care about the things, we are safe. That I really appreciate that so many people care about the things, we care about each other, we care how to solve the things. So this is magical, so let's care. And let's have some amazing food over there.
Yeah.